Waterford are celebrating. It's all over. Waterford are the All Ireland champions. They beat Monaghan in a wonderful game of football.
So to reflect on the wonder years for the Waterford ladies football team during the 90s, delighted to be joined in the line now by 8-time All Star Áine Wall. And Áine, Waterford won 5 senior All Irelands during that decade: 91, 92, 94, 95 and 98. And you're also beaten in 2 finals in 97 and 99. When you look back, can you put your finger on why you enjoyed such a golden era during the 90s?
Yeah, hi Tomas. I suppose you'd have to reflect back to the 1986 win in the Junior All Ireland, and the girls had paved the way for those 5 All Ireland victories. So, we had a lot of losses, say, from after winning the 86, we were beaten in every Munster final against Kerry, 97, 98, 99, 90. And, in a few of those years, we genuinely thought we had a chance to beat them. But look, we pushed through in 91. Great victory below in Listowel. And thankfully, we went on to get the All Ireland that year. And, every year after that was fantastic to win one.
And Michael Ryan was in charge of the team from 82 right up to 2006. He was involved in those 5 All Irelands and also the 10 senior club All Irelands as well. How did he manage to get you to that high level and keep you there for so long?
He was just phenomenal. He was approached by his wife and a few other girls to train the team back in the day. And sure, he just went down and thought, I'll train him one night now and they won't ask me again. But after the first night, he had more the following night. And I remember I was playing under 14, county community games was under 14 back in that time. And I remember looking at them training and thinking, God, would I ever get onto that team, and being in total awe of them and in awe of Michael. And he was very everything had to be done just right. There was time for messing, there was time for talking, but there was time for training. And when you were training, you were training. And Michael, he wouldn't tell you until 10 minutes before the match who was starting.
Okay.
So up until the day of the game, you were so nervous, am I going to make this team? And he always kept us on our toes. And
what can you sort of explain the training regime that he had in place for you during those days?
Oh, it was all running.
Okay.
I hated running. It was all, but everything was done with the ball as well. More often than not, we all had football in hand. And as my mother used to often say down through the years, Michael Ryan reared us all. We seem to be always in the field. We seem to be always training. We seem to be always together. But he demanded respect, and we gave respect, and he gave respect. And I think when you have that, it works. But he was some man to give a talk as well. He'd be able to put the hairs in the back of your neck before a game. You could believe that you'd win any game at any time. He would have you so focused and so ready.
And you touched on that victory over Kerry in Listowel in the 91 Munster final. That sort of set the ball rolling because Kerry were the standard bearers at that time and they were actually going for 10 All Irelands in a row that year.
They were, and look, I suppose in 89 or 90 we came close to beating them and we just fell short. And Marie Crossley famously said, we went to play, but in 91 we went to win. And we went 7 points down and when that game started in Listowel. And we actually had to really dig deep. And we went into half-time, we were actually a point up. And then we went on to win, I think it was 2-11 to 2-6. And Crossley stepped in to put them off. They were taking a penalty and they ended up only going for the point. So, that year we were going to win. That was our year. I think that would have been make or break for a lot of players. If we hadn't have won in 91, I think that a lot of people would have just said, this isn't ever going to happen, and they might have given up, but it just drove us on then.
And I believe your sister's wedding was on the day before that Munster final, Áine. Was that an issue at all?
Oh, God, no. It was, I suppose. Yeah, my sister Frances. And Frances was on the 1986 junior team and was on the subsequent Ballamac club teams in 87, 88, 89. And I would have looked up to her when I was younger. So when she set her wedding for the 10th of August, and I thought, this could clash with a Munster final against Kerry, but look, we had to go with the wedding. So the wedding went ahead, and the celebrations went ahead, and the hangover set in, I'd say, 2 hours after the match.
Okay, very good.
We won.
That's the main thing. And going on then to the All-Ireland final against Laois, Áine, you defeated them 5-8 to 3-7 on that occasion, and you scored 3-3 in that final. Was that your best display in a Waterford jersey, would you say?
I suppose I probably would have enjoyed 1994 more. I don't know for what reason. But yeah, 91, I suppose I was playing at number 10. I think I kind of started at wing forward. And 91 was the first year that Michael put me in at full forward. And I remember I'd be at home and I used to feel, because I was so small, I said to my father, like, geez, how do I play at full forward? And I remember he said to me, way back in the early days, he said, if we put you in at full forward, he knows you can score goals. So he said, do your best. And that's what I always did, right? So when we went into Croke Park, I remember running out in the field and thinking, geez, this is huge. And even going down and standing in the goal mouth, thinking, God, it was so big. And, like, I suppose, look, I was fast, and I was able to bring the full-back out, and Bernie Ryan and Geraldine and Marie were able to ping the ball in over the full-back line, and I was able to run onto it. And, look, I was lucky enough to be on the end of it to get the scores. But, like, it was a team event that day, because Sue Ramsbottom was leading the charge on the other end. Like, for every goal I got, she was getting goals down and points down the other side. So, it was the lads keeping her quiet back there and then sending the ball up the field.
And when you look back on that team, Áine, were there leaders almost in every line of the field?
Oh, there were. You had, like, Patricia Butler was in goals. And then you had, say, you had Bernie Ryan out mid of the field. You had the twins. You had Marie Crotty, Noreen Welsh. I'll leave somebody out now. Anne Dunford. Anne Dunford back in the day. Like I remember starting down the midfield training. I was 15 when in '86 going on to that junior team and being in awe of Anne Dunford and thinking how can I play against the likes of these. So when we were going in, I remember Michael in the 91 telling us, and we were nervous inside in the dressing room. And I remember him saying to us, "Look around you. Look who's either side of you. Look who's behind you. Like, believe in your team, believe in yourself." And like when you looked around that team, we had a great team.
Well, was there a big homecoming, Áine, in 91 to kind of acknowledge the first senior All-Ireland for Waterford?
Oh, there was. We always got great homecomings, especially in Ballamacarby, the bonfires lighting. But in 91, back into Dungarvan and the square full, and and even the days afterwards, going around with the cups with schools, and we were going into schools, and then in the 94 or 95, probably 98 All Ireland, some of the girls we went into the schools to were actually our colleagues on the team. So we had wonderful homecomings, wonderful celebrations, and people around the time they really enjoyed our success.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have very fond memories of those days during the 90s, Áine, and going forward into 1992, you actually broke a bone in your wrist against Monaghan in a league game, but 5 weeks later you managed to line out against Kerry again in the Munster final. Can you talk us through what happened, Áine?
I did. We were up in Portlaoise, and I don't know, I can't remember was it the first or second half, but I went in to block down a ball, and it was a pure freak accident, and her boot met my wrist, and I knew immediately it was gone. I couldn't even lift the wrist. I knew it was gone, and Ger Mooney brought me up the road to the Portlaoise Hospital, and so when I came back, I think there must have been a game on after hours. All the lads were still sitting in the stand, and of course there was no mobile phones, so they were just waiting for us to get back. And back I came anyway, my hand in a cast up to my elbow. And 6 weeks, they were saying that the cast wouldn't be removed. So that was grand. I had to go to Cashel Hospital. Then they took off the cast and put on another one. And they said, that it would be 6 weeks before they'd take it off. So the Thursday night before the Kerry game, myself and my dad went at it with a basin of water and a scissors. And my mother walked into the sitting room to see us, and She didn't say that, and she just turned and she walked out, and she came back in with her sharper scissors.
You're all on the same page, so Áine.
Well, without saying anything, she was. She was a bit taken aback, but look, there was nothing going to stop me playing in that match, nothing. And the torrential rain that came down the same night in Dungarvan, it could have easily been called off.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And look, Martina Ryan did something similar a few years after she broke her hand and she removed the cast. Not that I wouldn't be encouraging any child to do it, but you do what you feel you must do at the time, and it's personal to everybody, and that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah, did that kind of sum up the attitude of the team at that time, Áine?
We would have went through a brick wall at that time, and we were so focused, but we were focused in a way that we had so much fun while we were doing it. We weren't into the dietitians and time and everything that goes on now. Ours was like we just literally we enjoyed what we were doing. We enjoyed playing it, and that made it easier, I suppose.
And you won a tighter game against Laois in 92, 2-10 to 3-4, and then we come on to the rivalry against Monaghan. Áine, you met him in 94, 95. 97, 98 in All-Ireland finals. Can you describe that rivalry between those two great teams during that decade?
You see, up to that, you had games that were always home and away. So if you were playing Mayo, they came down and they played you in Dungarvan, and then you brought them someplace later on, you fed them, and you socialised and you got to know them. When it came to when Monaghan came to the front, it was gone to a halfway venue. So there was never that camaraderie there. So it was always an intense battle when we met them. And Monaghan, I suppose they were lucky in a sense. They had no competition until they really got to an All-Ireland semi or an All-Ireland final. And they certainly had no Ulster championship. So they didn't have to start training until their serious training didn't have to start until July or August. Whereas we were training for Kerry earlier in the summer. So we always felt when it came to an All-Ireland final, we had so much training done. And I suppose that kind of, towards the end, even though they beat, 96 and 97, we were a tired team. They beat us in the semi-final in 96 and the final in 97. But, so I think, look, they brought a different edge to the game. They brought a real competitiveness to it. Like, there was always competitive, don't get me wrong, but they just brought a different edge to the game. But they were tough matches.
Oh, they certainly were, and it was a tight one in 94. You beat them by 4 points in Croke Park. And then in 95, Áine, you called it a very big win over Monaghan, 4-14 to 1-5. Did the team hit its peak on that occasion, do you think?
Yeah, well, 94, I suppose we didn't know what to expect with Monaghan. And, we did well to beat them. And Elisa Crotty pulled off some great saves and goals that day. 95 I think it was a gale force wind up in Croke Park that day. So we had a massive lead at half time. And like they tried their best in the second half, but I think we were up 4 goals and two goals or 10 points or something at half time. We won 4 goals and 14 points to 1-5. But then it was a reflection of the lead we had at half time. But I suppose we were probably taken back in 94, so in 95 we were all out. We were just going to beat them, and that was that. And
as you say, Áine, Monaghan got their revenge in 96 in the semi-final, and then that heartbreaking loss in 97. Was that one of the toughest defeats to take? Like, people remember the injury time. The referee, Finbar Driscoll, played 11 minutes and 52 seconds of stoppage time on that day.
That still hurts. 97, all I said afterwards, it was like being a horse show that we got a time fault for every foul we committed.
Right.
He was just never going to blow that whistle. And it actually still hurts. Now, the only good thing that came from that was the clock. So, and I think that's something should be introduced into the men's game, because it just takes that away from the referee. The clock stops when there's a foul. So it was one good thing that came from it. But I remember my oldest brother, Michael, he always worked abroad, and he wasn't around for a lot of my games, but he was at that match, and he was in the Cusack stand, and we were winning. And they had to leave the Cusack stand and actually go out of the stadium and around and in the Hogan stand. and they could hear all the cheering going on, and they thought it was over. And so when they came in, and the next thing, Monaghan were after winning it, they couldn't believe it. They were just, and it was heartbreaking. Now it was really, really, really heartbreaking.
And did that act as motivation coming into 98 then, Áine, when you met Monaghan again in the final?
100%, yeah. That was, it was so hard to take, and so 98 gave us a new focus, and we were back like a new team. Now, there was a draw in the first game, so it had to go to a replay, and we really dug deep and pulled out a victory. And that was the end of it then, wasn't it? I mean, a lot of the team retired, and we've never again reached the height.
Yeah, and like you were back in Croke Park as the Jubilee team last September. Áine, is there still a very tight bond between that group of players during the 80s and 90s?
Oh, yeah. We've been back twice now, and it's just brilliant. I mean, we were like youngsters down the end singing before we went out in the field. We really enjoyed it. And the first year we were back up there was for the 92, and it was the Laois team were there, and we had great on crack with them. It was a super day, and last year we were up with for the year we beat Monaghan. And it were super days out. We were treated just like royalty now. I must hand it to the Ladies Football Association. It was great days out.
Well, Áine, it's been great to get your memories of those glory days for the Waterford Ladies football team during the 90s. And thanks a million for taking our call today.
No problem, Tomas. Thanks for having me on.
We love Waterford. We are WLR.